Welcome, everyone. What a special episode of the Marketing Companion we have today. Um, we had one of my regular co-hosts, Paul Racer. As you know, he has got a big event, MACON. This is days before MACON, and he said, "Hey, can I get a free pass?" And this gives me a great opportunity because today I've got Ethan Pierse joining me. Ethan has been a friend of mine for a long time. He is absolutely one of the most incredible visionaries when it comes to AI, entrepreneurship, and really has this amazing insight into where this world of AI is going. He is in the middle of it. So we're going to get a chance to talk to him about that today. Now, before I do, because you know I'm going to get immersed in this conversation and forget, I want to remind you our show is brought to you by Brevo. It's been a great sponsor of our program for 3 years. They can bring you a unified view of the customer journey in one easy to use platform. And I want to emphasize easy to use. I am not a techie person, and this is the easiest app I use on a daily basis. You don't even have to take any risk. You can get started with Brevo for free by going to brevo.com/marketing companion. Try the trial. And if you do decide to sign up, use the promo code companion to get 50% off your first 3 months. So Ethan Pierce, welcome to the show. So delighted to have you on the podcast.
It's fantastic to get to be here. Thanks, buddy. We had this fantastic conversation last week out on the boat, and halfway through, and at the end of it, I kept thinking, "Gosh, we really should have recorded this. It was like
We
a
should
book."
have recorded the
Uh,
conversation.
but
Yeah, so
it's
I've
great to
known
be here.
Ethan for years, and he was in town, and we got to spend some time together. And so some of the conversation today, at least, is going to be just saying some of these things again because I wish we did record it. Um, so let's start off by talking a little bit about what you do now. You have an extremely interesting history of entrepreneurship and innovation and being on the cutting edge of technology and leveraging that into new business models. Today, you're one of the founders of a company called Borderless Ventures. Talk a little bit about what you're doing today.
Yeah, sure. So Borderless invests into primarily now AI, so generative and agentic AI solutions, things around the creator economy. Historically, also a lot of Web3. I'm a big fan of. So I always thought that crypto was going to democratize finance, and that hasn't worked out necessarily the way we wanted it to. But I really believe that AI is going to democratize opportunity. And what I
Mm-hmm.
mean by that is just that there are so many things around agentic and generative AI where the book that I'm working on called the AI Solopreneur Economy is all about this solopreneur or small team entrepreneurship thing where people are able to leverage incredibly simple tools in a lot of ways, but to have an incredible amount of efficiency and impact through those tools. And so it really allows people who are non-developers but potentially fairly entrepreneurial to build stuff tech-wise that they couldn't do before, and it allows tech people who maybe aren't very businessy to maybe do all the businessy kind of stuff. And it's a really interesting thing where whether you're by yourself or in a small team, AI is really leveraging, being able to leverage AI and all the different tools that are here, and especially the ones that are even just coming, are going to be able to create so much more interesting stuff for people in terms of entrepreneurship and being able to build their own thing, create their own future. And so, Borderless, I hope to invest more into a lot of these things. But a lot of it's weird because some of it actually, the funny thing is whenever people get into this, they don't necessarily need venture capital because a lot of this stuff just creates revenue and can build. So it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of making some of the VCs nervous, and that's actually okay. But I'm really excited about getting to follow along in a lot of these journeys with people in what they're building. And the things that they're doing with primarily generative and agentic AI, workflow solutions, things like N8N, or all kinds of just really interesting stuff that allows people to basically automate tremendous amount of what they do either at work or if they work for someone else, a big company, small company, or in their own entrepreneurship.
So as you invest in these new companies, and I think I remember, I know you've got an outpost in Singapore and one in Estonia. Um, are you? I talked to a venture capitalist a couple years ago, and you'd think that the internet and AI is sort of like democratizing things, democratizing opportunity, as you say. And I said, where do you go to find the companies to invest in?
Mm.
Because of the internet and AI, or can it be anywhere? Can it be like Des Moines, Iowa? And he said, not really. He said, I basically spend my time, he said, I hope I get this right. He said, San Francisco, Austin, Boston, maybe New York, London, and I think Tel Aviv, and there might have been one more, but it basically left out entire continents. I think maybe he had Korea in there too, maybe Seoul. And so how's that compare to your reality and how your business works?
Yeah, I think the point's very valid. The main issue is like a lot of entrepreneurship, if you're having to build relationships and do things with people, it works a lot better when you're actually near them, next to them.
Yeah.
So I would say that the first part of that answer is just that's why I do all of the events and the networking. It's why I want to speak on all these stages because it introduces me to people. It's why getting to do things like this are so important because it just puts me. I really feel like networking is not so much about who you know, but very much about who knows you. And so I try to do everything I can during my day to make sure that people know what I'm capable of doing for them or
Hmm.
with them. And so I think that's a big piece of it, being just somebody who continues to
And it's
connect as
kind
much as
of
possible.
critical mass of attention.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah,
you
and
find in the bigger cities.
well, and a lot of tech, so obviously San Francisco and the Valley are super important. Uh, in tech in general, especially with what's going on in AI right now. But interestingly enough, since COVID, remote work was really even kind of going this direction even before COVID, but COVID definitely accelerated this, where a lot of entrepreneurs are staying home. Where it all the French entrepreneurs that built a third of Silicon Valley are now just building everything in France, and all of the Eastern European entrepreneurs who have been building stuff but having to come to France in order to do stuff because that at least got them closer to doing stuff in the West. Well, now they're actually staying home, and so it's become a really interesting thing where a lot of people are building companies from where they are at, where they are from, and not necessarily having to flip their company somewhere, going somewhere else in order to build those things. And so that's why the Borderless is based in Singapore and based in Tallinn, which is in Estonia. That is the EU. It gives me some interesting opportunities to about by being in the EU, but is also kind of has its own identity. And so, but in any case, it's the that's the structure. The reality is I'm just trying to be everywhere in terms of the stuff that can matter. I don't go to the U.S. hardly at all. There is a ton of incredible stuff going on there, but there's also actually a ton of incredible stuff going on here. Here being France, but also Southeast Asia is just incredible. The stuff going on in Central and Eastern Europe, and again, because of remote work and things not flipping the way they used to, but also just so many of the entrepreneurs that built stuff in the Valley, that built stuff in the US, are not from the Valley or the US. They're from here, they're from somewhere in Europe, they're from somewhere in Asia. And so much of
Hmm.
that's just staying home. So I think your friend was right about that, and I think it's still very much true, especially on the high end. A lot of the scale up big stuff, or even the stuff that requires like large private equity or big scale up type rounds, that maybe that's still an issue, but otherwise no. I think you can build something from. It's part of, I think, the AI magic now too. I think I told you a story that one of the first companies I worked for was a gaming company in Boston back in 1997 to 98. And we bought two hard drives that were like a couple hundred megabytes, I think, each, and they were $500,000 a piece. And now you can go and sign up for free web hosting, and free
Yeah.
OpenAI credits and free Amazon credits and free everything, and you can build a company that in a couple months will start to pay its bills just fine. But you didn't have to spend a penny to build it, or if you did, it's small, and that's incredible.
Yeah, so we're sort of getting into this topic. You mentioned briefly that you've been working on this book, and I know you are passionate about this idea of solopreneurship and the opportunity with AI.
Mm.
So what's the gap? What's the gap that you're trying to, what's the core idea in this book where you're trying to inspire and energize individuals to step out and create their own businesses with this opportunity of AI?
So I think what has held people back from entrepreneurship, especially entrepreneurship maybe at scale, and not just like a freelance activity, which is great, and a lot of people that's where they started, but they also maybe stay there because taking that to a next step requires a lot of potential unknowns or things that they haven't learned. And I think there's this big idea of I don't know how to do that, which I find weird given that past quite a while now we've had the internet where you can literally just go type questions and learn everything on YouTube or wherever. But now we've gone this huge step forward where it's not just a question of, hey, ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, explain this to me or tell me how to do that, or give me a 30-day deep research plan of how to learn this subject, spending an hour a day to master it. And 50 minutes later, Gemini spits out this book and it's ready to go for you to learn something and do it really well. The thing is, now that we have that, if you have the motivation and enough of that kind of self-confidence to push yourself to take that risk of really diving into something, then it's not just a question now of doing research with Google or YouTube or whatever and kind of learning the skills. We actually can get the full roadmap, the full accompaniment, the full thing around building a product or service. And that is absolutely fascinating. So for me, solopreneurship, it can also be small team entrepreneurship because I think in the end, there's not a lot of true solopreneurs once something starts to scale.
Hmm.
They're either outsourcing a lot or they're building a team of agents, which is a fantastic thing now to where you've got these small AI things out there doing all their stuff for you. And we're seeing now companies with 3, 5, 8 people that are having 7, 8, 9 figure revenue. We will have in 2026 the first unicorn company with one single founder employee. I'm not sure I buy into that completely because I still think there's a lot of people doing outsourcing and other stuff in there. But regardless, it's not really even about building that $1 billion thing. What it really is a couple people or one person using generative AI along with agentic AI, which basically generative allows you to create and agentic allows you to automate processes. You glue those things together, and the next thing you know, you're able to build a product or a service by yourself or with a small team that would have required 10x the people, a whole lot more capital, a whole lot more time. And now, basically, if you have an idea, you're able to build it. So if you're an entrepreneur, marketing type person, and you have an idea for an app or some kind of a web, whether it's an iOS app or a web app, you can build that now with AI. And it won't be perfect and it won't necessarily scale. But the thing is it's going to prove an MVP, and you didn't have to talk to a programmer to make that happen. You can bring things to life. And the same thing is true for devs who may or may not be very business, very marketing, and those kind of things might super scare them to get going down that road. Well, and it's exactly the same thing. The AI can step in and create so much of the knowledge, so much of the roadmap, and actually even then doing the tasks themselves. That's why it all makes a lot of amazingness to me that these things are coming, because it allows people to have tremendous reach and scale and efficiency either by themselves or in a small team that was unheard of before. And I think that's going to unlock a new wave of entrepreneurship before the
Well,
robots and the AIs take over. But that's a whole other
and
conversation.
and yeah, we're going to talk about that next. So, so so when do you think your book will be available? Because I mean, this is something I'm passionate about too.
Mhm.
That there's this. I mean, there's so much economic need out there. I mean, this could really launch a lot of new ideas and a lot of new businesses. So, what do you think is the timing of your book?
Well, the thing is so much of this is already available out there for people looking for it. But as with most books, you're trying to condense it into something where people who aren't necessarily looking can grab it and grasp a whole lot more of the information more easily. And so I've been working on it for a couple months, about 6 months now, and I think that well, about halfway done with it. So I just need to
Okay.
kick it into gear. And this is something that doesn't need to go through the long, long process. So I'm hoping to get it out this fall. Especially, I've got Web Summit coming up next month, so I'd really like to be able to use that as kind of my
Yeah.
last funnel of driving people towards the pre-sale of that. And then get it out to them in after that or early December and get it out the door because it is timely and I'd rather get it done and then update it. So that's kind of my process right
Yeah.
now.
Great. Well, one of the biggest conversations right now is the AI bubble. And I mean, you're right in the middle of this. You're an investor. You just have this unique perspective of what's happening and what could happen and what's real. And one of the conversations that's fueling the speculation of an AI bubble is that there are trillions and trillions of dollars being spent on growing these businesses on compute and data centers and energy. And then we see in the news that businesses are saying, I can't find the ROI.
Mm,
And the spread, we see it really in people, using it to write their blog posts or whatever, but there's a pretty limited ROI with a $20 a month subscription to ChatGPT.
mm.
And there's got to be some massive way of adoption, some massive new source of ROI. And when you and I talked about this last week, I thought you had a very keen perspective on this. What's your view of these conflicting stories of AI is going to change the world and we need to invest. AI, it's not delivering our ROI and there's going to be a bubble. What's your view?
So I think when it comes to the bubble conversation, especially if we're looking at valuations of some of these companies that are just crazy, 10 employees and they've been around for a year and they're worth X billions.
Yeah.
The story behind that and the reason that they're companies like OpenAI and as well as if we look at things like Meta and Google and others are putting so much money into this. It's not so much for what it can do now, although I am pretty bullish on a lot of the things that we can talk about individually that you can automate and that you can create efficiencies around. For me, it's an arms race towards what comes next. And so as the LLM growth, so when you use something like ChatGPT or things like that, these are learning machines that basically now are guessing machines. They just read everything they could. They looked at all the images, all the photos, all the videos. They read the library, they read the internet, and now they're just guessing, predicting what you need them to say, and they're filling in those gaps with all this real information, which generally is always true, but sometimes they can get creative and make stuff up. But the reality is, what's interesting is that all this money that's being spent is to scale up the compute, which is that power needed to answer your questions when you ask ChatGPT something. And then also the power to train these things behind the scenes to feed them all this information, which the original versions of ChatGPT and some of that they cost hundreds of millions to train these things. And so today it costs the last version I saw was 46 cents every time you click the button to ask ChatGPT or Gemini or one of them something. That's the compute, meaning the servers, that's the electricity, that's that what's being used to be able to answer that thing, and that's a lot of electricity, a lot of water usage, a lot of very expensive servers that are being put into these buildings in order to build that. And for me, the arms race there is to own that tool, that resource, as the models advance, as we get away from the LLMs and into the newer versions of what AI will be that will take us more towards the AGI idea, which is this artificial general intelligence. And then once we get past that, we get to the artificial super intelligence. AGI is when it's like us, and ASI is when it becomes just not necessarily omniscient,
Alien.
but super, super, super smart and fast.
Hmm.
And so I'm very bullish on where that's at. I don't think there is a bubble necessarily. The valuations are weird and wonky around that because they're not necessarily related to revenue, but a lot of scale up tech stuff is that way where it's worth multiples way beyond what it should be, but just because they're taking market share and growing. Well, that's actually what I think is happening with a lot of these AI companies, whether it's the big ones, the big companies like Meta and Google and everybody, or it's the smaller ones building tools like Lovable, which lets you duplicate a website or from a screenshot or things like that, or just from telling it, hey, make me an iOS app that is a calendar or whatever. 50 minutes later, it spits it out. Like that kind of stuff is super interesting, and those companies their valuations are through the roof. I think it's primarily driven around the fact that this is for the first time to this extent since the beginning of the internet, where we're redoing everything. We had little things along the way with payments and e-commerce and social media and apps with smartphones and stuff like that were interesting peaks as we kind of went up that path. This, however, we're redoing everything that the internet can do and does, and so there's a new gold rush and an arms race to really build all that stuff and be first person there. And it's not all necessarily from the incumbents that built the first version of the internet. So I don't think there's a bubble per se, but there is a valuation thing that's a little weird. The bubble will be when we get to one of these next steps and some of those companies win and some of them don't, then their valuations will have proven to not be all that great. But we really can't, I don't think, see that yet.
Well, one of the things you said in our earlier conversation is that the short-term ROI is much less important
Mm,
because the last company standing that reaches a ASI
mm,
will basically own everything
yeah,
because you'll have an intelligence that can solve space, interstellar space flight
mm,
and physics and human aging and and so that's sort of a scary and weird
yeah.
concept that really is the arms race. It's not an incremental productivity tool
Mm.
that's going to create an ROI. It's the game that might be a few years away where you own the key to everything.
So AGI is just when it thinks like us, so that it well thinks like the smarter ones of us. Hopefully, not just like us in general. I will qualify that. I think we're already at the median. But the issue there is, AGI is just the ability to right now the art of using AI. And so this goes back to the book concept and the ability to use these things and actually to answer your bubble question as well. AI is capable of doing an incredible amount right now, but you have to know how to talk to it. And so prompt engineering, this idea of being able to write the instructions, the question, you can't just say, hey, make me a website. You're going to get random colors, random fonts. It's going to be about whatever. If you do something like a PRD, a product requirements document, and you can even have Claude or Gemini help you write that thing, and you end up with this 10, 20, 30 page document that outlines the tech stack, it outlines all the functions that the thing needs, it outlines the process, what things are going to be built in what order, all these things. You don't have to be a developer. You just have to ask Gemini, explain what a PRD is, explain how to build something, and start the learning process. And then once you do that, you walk through that, okay, help me build those things for my idea. And so way before you ever ask an AI to build you something, you actually write the instruction manual for building the thing you want to build. And when you give that to AI today, especially things like Claude with Sonnet or Opus, it will write an incredible application. The only reason it writes crap right now is because you're asking it crap. If you tell it if you ask a bad question, it's going to give you maybe not a bad answer, but it's not going to be specific because you didn't tell it. It's like employees, based in a lot of ways. I mean, if if you've got a team that's able to do a lot of that on their own, then they're going to probably, if they know what you're thinking, they'll probably do it that way. But if they don't, they're going to do what they think. And so the less instruction you give, the less exact you probably get the result you want. And so that's where this is all kind of coming to a piece there. Well, AGI is going to solve a lot of that because we're already seeing it, that the models that have come out in the past couple of months are already so much better at either knowing what you wanted to do or gently reminding you that maybe you should do it this way because it's probably better than the thing you wanted to do. But in any case, you get great results. ASI, that super intelligence, when we get to that, The day after we get to that, or the weeks and months after that, we get fusion, we get quantum, we get all kinds of longevity things like DNA targeted cancer treatments. We get incredible stuff because most of those kind of fundamental science, fundamental physics questions are simply repetition. It's scientists or computers repeating a calculation or an idea or an experiment until they get a result that works, and that goes, wow, that's actually the solution. Well, the thing is, ASI will be able to do those things to such a level, so fast, with such an intelligence that we will answer many of those questions just that much faster. So that's why I find it to be super, super interesting at this point with where we're going, because who knows how quickly we will get to the general or super intelligence, but we are getting tools now that do an incredible amount, even with where we're at.
Yeah, so you're bullish that we will get there, in our lifetimes to ASI.
We
Let's
are,
say
I think so.
let's say
Yeah.
your lifetime, not my lifetime. Those are two different lifetimes. Let's say
Oh,
your lifetime.
like I said, there's lots of product going on here, but we're not that far off from each other. But you're right. But and to the last piece to answer your bullish or usefulness kind of question is one of the clients I've trained here in France is big grocery like organic grocery store chain, and I trained all of their kind of finance department and executives on Microsoft Copilot and being able to use that on the generative and on the agentic side for the company. And something as simple as one of the ladies who is a vice president of something in the finance direction of the company, she spent every Friday, and I mean, she's getting paid well. She's got a great education. She's super competent in what she does. She spends every Friday looking at a couple of Excel sheets, pulling things out of them into a new Excel sheet, and then taking the stuff that's in that Excel sheet and making a PowerPoint presentation out of it. Takes her half a day or a whole day. We sat down for 10 minutes after the first training, and using Microsoft Copilot, we wrote the script that eats the Excel sheets, creates a new part of an Excel sheet, and instantly turns that into a PowerPoint and emails it to her. And all she does is every Friday get an email. She doesn't do that job anymore. She doesn't have to do it. Like, that's the kind of stuff that is real when it comes to where AI is at. So it's not just about the entrepreneurship thing. It's not just about uh, the the stuff that we're seeing where people are making a lot of money with AI. What we're really seeing here that's interesting is the efficiencies that it creates around workflows, around automated, around repeated, repetitious type stuff that wastes time, especially wastes the time of people who are very qualified to do other things. And that is why I'm also bullish, because even if a lot of this stuff is overvaluated or overhyped, the reality is that that kind of stuff can change a company very quickly. And it leads us to where we're at. I know I love long answers, but it leads us to the where we're at with where a lot of the stuff is right now that's super interesting, which is a lot of the big tech companies are not firing people right now, but they are saying we won't hire into new jobs if an AI can do it. And if we get rid of people or if they leave, we won't necessarily hire somebody to replace them. And so it is not a good time to lose your job as a developer in Silicon Valley. It's not a good time in a lot of these companies. We saw companies like Fiverr, we saw Shopify, we've seen a bunch of different companies like that have recently in the past 6 months put out memos saying we're not hiring unless an AI cannot do it. And the reality is our days are numbered. Fiverr, which is a remote outsourced working company, the CEO put out a memo a couple months ago that said, even my job's toast. So we need to get the company moving in a different direction because we're all going to get replaced, because all we're doing is outsourcing tasks that really we're talking agentic AI. So anyways, lots of
Well,
amazing things coming.
let me switch gears here a little bit. Unfortunately, we're winding down the show, but when I uh, first got to know you, and one of the things I admire about you is you were one of the true innovators and thought leaders around Web3. I remember years ago, you even created an art gallery in Paris, like an NFT art gallery. Absolutely amazing. Well, it seems like Web3 has kind of dropped off the radar, but so I'd like to know. I mean, you were a person that was just such a leader and a visionary in this space. what are some of the foundational principles of Web3 that are still kind of like operating under the radar that are
Mm.
still important? It's not making the headlines like it did, 2 or 3 years ago, but what are some of the things about Web3 that still hold your interest?
The biggest mistake that a lot of people in Web3 were making, and actually still make to a certain degree, is that they think anybody cares. No one cares about crypto. No one cares about Web3. No one cares about the tech. I go on Amazon, I want the thing, I buy it, it shows up tomorrow. I don't need to understand the tech stack. I don't need to understand the logistics. Um, uh, at this point, I should, because I buy way too much stuff on Amazon. But the point is, I don't have to know that for it to work. And that's Web3. This is a technology stack that's going to be, and actually already is, very, very much a piece of the behind the scenes of a lot of things. Because what Web3 really does, what tokenization does, is it creates proximity between potentially a brand or a content creator or a product and their public. It removes intermediaries, because with the idea of wallets or however you're organizing your stuff, the ability for me to I'll take an example of stuff that's being worked on right now that would be super interesting. Ed Sheeran decides to sell, or whoever decides to sell his next song. Nobody's selling music, but because that's all streamed at this point. But what if they wanted to provide you with early access to the next single? So for $5, you could get 2 weeks or a month of early access. And the way to do that, you either go to the Ed Sheeran website or you can buy it on Spotify. But what's going to happen is there's a wallet somewhere. So we're just going to use email addresses. We don't have to get into all the technical stuff, which is again part of the problem, making it too technical. But the point is that NFT, which gives you the right to to that digital asset, is connected to you. And so when you sign into Spotify, you're going to be able to stream that song, but only you and nobody else, unless they have that NFT, because it shows that you have the rights to that. Or you can go to Apple Music, you can go to Deezer, to any of the platforms that would use the same technology. And so that lets you do that. But then it gets really cool, because that same NFT you can go to the store, you can go to the website for the artist and potentially buy t-shirts or a product that only relate to that thing, because again, the NFT gives you an access that no one else can have, because you're signing into the website using that kind of a thing. You can get a meet and greet when you go to the concert. You can sit in a special section. You can get access to downloadables like a live track or a video. All these things simply because you have a digital asset that is attached to you. And that is a really interesting thing that's being done a lot. Another example, which might really fit our crowd here, is in the case of digital identity. If you go look on LinkedIn, there are over 700,000 people who have gotten a bachelor's degree or a master's degree from Harvard. If you ask Harvard how many of those they've given out since they started, it's around 370,000. So, something's off with those numbers. Now imagine that you could be, these are special NFTs called soulbound tokens, that the person who gives it to you is the only one who can transfer it out of your wallet, so that you can't like loan your Harvard MBA to a friend. But the point is, Harvard would give you your degree, your diploma, also as an NFT. That NFT, when you sign into LinkedIn now, would be there, and you could go, hey, look, do you want me to put your diploma on your profile as well? And you say yes. And now on the profile, you have a little icon that's a verified education icon. And now I know that you actually went there. I don't have to call as a recruiter. I don't have to verify anything. This is 100% done, real, sure that belongs to you. We've got tons of things like that. We've got it in all kinds of luxury products, all kinds of, it doesn't have to be just luxury, but things like that, wine, all kinds of different things where we are proving, the last point really of where Web3 ties this together, we prove origin, and we prove authenticity, and we prove ownership. And so really just authenticity and ownership. We prove that thing, that bottle of wine, that piece of art, that diploma, that downloaded tract of music, every single thing, we can prove that it is real. Second piece we're doing, we prove ownership. We can prove that it is yours and not that person's. And the moment I sell it or transfer it to them, it is now theirs and it is no longer mine in an immediate way. And that is massively useful across commerce, across especially crazy actually in marketing, tons of things. And so that's why I love it, Web3. But we have to abstract that out. Nobody cares about wallets. Nobody cares about all the tech. They just want to be able to use the thing. And that is why Web3 will matter. And the last piece of that, and then I'll finish with that, is it's not a Web3 thing, it's a crypto thing. Stable coins, which basically would be dollars or euros as crypto. So not Bitcoins or Ethereum or anything like that. Stable coins, basically like USDT, USDC, those are dollars. And so when you hold them, it's a way to keep your money in crypto, but have it stable so it's not going up and down because Bitcoin's worth a lot more, a lot less today, or Ethereum or any of the other thousands of things you could have. Stable coins are the way to hold your money when you're trading in between things, if you trade a lot or whatever. Here's why this is interesting and why it's going to scale like just amazing the next couple of years. It already is, because agentic AI, which agentic AI is agents, AI that is doing a task, one little workflow, one little task. You string them together into a workflow to do things. So when I get this email, put a copy in my Notion, put it in my calendar, send it to ChatGPT to do a summary of it, and write a response. Send me a WhatsApp message to see if I like the response, and if I say yes, in the email. Like all these kind of things you can tag together. That's agentic. It's a workflow. The only part that's really AI is when I ask ChatGPT or something like that, but we're going to call the whole thing agentic AI. Well, here's the thing. A lot of those pieces, those agents, are just talking to each other. And what happens if they have to pay each other? What happens if whenever I want to ask ChatGPT something, instead of paying 10 bucks, 20 bucks, 100 bucks at the end of the month or whatever, or API fees, I could just send the payment for that request at that moment. When my electric car plugs in to get charged, what if the agent could just say, "Hey, how much do I owe you?" Whenever I want to send transactional emails, whenever I want to do anything I could possibly think where it's 0.003 cents or it's $3 or whatever that has to be sent between two agents, well, guess what? They can do that with stablecoins. And this is going to create trillions of dollars of crypto transfers between these things. JP Morgan created their own stablecoin internally just to do settlement inside, and they did $150 billion of internal settlement last year with their own
Hmm.
stablecoin. This is not a maybe thing. This is the reality of finance because it's cross border, it's 24/7, it has no anything. The money is just moving back and forth when it needs to. Again, crypto, but nobody will see it.
Hmm. So
So,
fascinating. Well, Ethan, thank you so much for sharing your insights and wisdom with us today. Ethan mentioned he's like one of the greatest networkers in the world. So be sure to check out the accompanying blog post for this show. We'll put all
yay!
his connections, his links in there, so you can follow Ethan and keep up with him. Thanks everyone for listening to our show. We'll see you next time
Thanks, Mark.
on
Appreciate it.
the Marketing Companion.